Conflicts rarely stay contained. They begin with a border, a strike, a retaliation. And then, almost quietly, alliances activate. The Middle East has long been described as volatile. But volatility alone does not create global conflict. What makes a regional crisis dangerous is not just tension, it is connectivity. And this region is deeply connected. Energy routes that power distant economies pass through narrow waterways. Military bases belonging to global powers are embedded across multiple states. Intelligence networks overlap. Defense agreements bind nations far beyond the region itself. So, when confrontation intensifies here, it does not remain local. It radiates outward. At the center of today's instability is a web of rivalries: Israel and Iran, Iran and Gulf states, proxy networks operating in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. Each conflict overlaps with another. Each escalation triggers responses not only from neighbors, but from global stakeholders. This is not a single dispute. It is a system of interlocking tensions. When missiles are launched, they test more than air defense systems. They test alliance credibility. If one state faces sustained attack, its partners must decide: support diplomatically, support militarily, or urge restraint. Every choice sends a signal. And signals accumulate. The United States maintains deep security commitments in the region. European nations rely on stable energy flows. Russia and China maintain strategic interests and partnerships. None of these actors are neutral observers. So the question is not simply whether regional rivals will escalate. It is whether global powers will feel compelled to respond. History shows that global conflicts often emerge not from isolated aggression, but from cascading obligations. One state defends an ally. Another reinforces its partner. Military assets reposition. Rhetoric hardens. Gradually, what began as a contained rivalry becomes a broader confrontation. The Middle East carries another layer of risk. Geography. The Strait of Hormuz channels a significant share of the world's oil supply. The Suez Canal links continents. Disruption in either choke point would not merely affect local markets, it would reverberate across global economies. Economic instability can accelerate political decisions. If energy prices spike sharply, domestic pressures rise in capitals far removed from the original conflict. Leaders facing economic strain may adopt more assertive foreign policies to restore credibility. And credibility, once challenged, is difficult to rebuild without visible action. There is also the issue of proxy warfare. Many confrontations in the region do not involve direct state-to-state battles. Instead, armed groups aligned with larger powers engage in limited strikes, rocket launches, or sabotage. These proxy engagements create ambiguity. Was the attack authorized? Is retaliation proportional? Does responding escalate unnecessarily? Ambiguity can buy time. But it can also create miscalculation. If a proxy strike causes significant casualties, a state may respond directly, even if the original intent was limited. That direct response can trigger a broader exchange. Layer upon layer, escalation becomes harder to contain. Technology adds another dimension. Missile systems have grown more advanced. Drone capabilities extend reach. Cyber operations can disrupt infrastructure without visible damage. The battlefield is no longer confined to physical terrain. Infrastructure becomes a target. Communication systems become leverage. Financial networks become pressure points. Global interdependence means that disruption in one node can ripple through others. And then there is perception. Narratives shape response. If leaders believe their adversaries are preparing for full-scale confrontation, they may strike first to avoid perceived vulnerability. Preemption, once justified, can appear indistinguishable from aggression. That is how defensive logic becomes offensive action. The Middle East is not on the brink solely because of ideology or rivalry. It is on the brink because the architecture of global power is embedded within it. Military bases, energy infrastructure, alliance commitments, competing spheres of influence. Each piece increases the number of actors involved in any serious escalation. The system is dense, and dense systems react unpredictably under pressure. Yet inevitability is not the same as probability. Global conflict is not guaranteed. Diplomatic channels remain active. Back-channel negotiations continue even during visible hostility. Regional powers understand the cost of full-scale war. Global powers understand the economic shock it would trigger. Restraint still exists. But restraint depends on interpretation. One misread signal, one overreaction, one unintended escalation. In tightly connected environments, small triggers can produce outsized consequences. So ask yourself, are current tensions isolated spikes within a long history of rivalry, or signs that deterrence mechanisms are weakening? Are alliances stabilizing forces or escalation multipliers? Is global involvement serving as a brake or a pressure amplifier? The Middle East could explode into a global conflict not because of a single dramatic event, but because of accumulated commitments, intersecting interests, and fragile perceptions. Look beyond the headlines. Examine the incentives of external powers, the economic stakes, the alliance structures quietly shaping response. Because the future will depend less on who fires the first visible shot, and more on how interconnected actors interpret it. Share your perspective. Do you see a region contained by balance, or a network of tensions waiting for a catalyst? In systems this interconnected, stability is not the absence of conflict. It is the management of it. And management requires clarity, before pressure turns calculation into collision.